All right, the purpose of this meeting is a driver safety meeting done on a quarterly basis as a requirement of the DOT regulations. It's also necessary to impart information of things that are taking place in the industry that you're going to be involved with. These are going to have some drastic effects. There's been more things released in the last 3 weeks that are going to have a direct effect on you than has been released in the last year. So, with that in mind, we're going to talk about a number of different things. First thing, if you're going to be at the Mid-American Truck Show, we are going to have a booth at that point. We have free tickets here. If you're going to be there, please stop by and say hello. It'd be nice to see people. If you are having people that you are knowing, friends, that would like to talk to us about coming on as a company driver or an owner-operator, and yet they haven't made it to us, you can also have them direct them to the booth at the Mid-American Truck Show. So what are we going to discuss? Well, there's just a few things: the electronic logging devices, coercion, fast act, due dates, National Registry, herd testing, on and on. Traffic deaths. Just a few things we'll cover in this meeting. Why will safety on the roads continue to be a hot topic? It's because there continue to be accidents. Specifically, in 2014, we had good news. In 2014, the number of traffic deaths for all vehicles went down 0.1%. That was very good. The problem is now in 2015, with the latest numbers that they currently know, we have gone up in traffic deaths by 8.1%, which is the largest single year increase in 50 years. So if you think there's going to be a back off in safety and the emphasis on traffic safety at all levels, from four-wheelers up to trucks, unfortunately that's not the case. So what's causing it? The price of fuel is down. With that, people feel more confident to be out on the road. When fuel was up, people planned their trips, were very much more careful. Even though it will take months for us to get the final numbers of traffic deaths in 2015, they've already got the miles figured out in the trillions of miles traveled in the United States. For 2015, and that number went up by 4.2%. So people are much more able to go out on the road. What's it mean? Bipartisan agreement in government. How often do you hear that term used nowadays? Almost never. What are they bipartisan agreement about? Traffic safety, especially truck safety. Why? There may be 20 million trucks, and they'd be hard to regulate, but there's probably 200 million four-wheelers. They're almost impossible to regulate. The trends. This is from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. 2014, the last numbers we have, trends are stubbornly constant. Deaths from drunk driving, 1/3 of fatalities. 1/2 of the occupants killed were not wearing seatbelts. Speeding was a factor in more than 1 in 4 traffic deaths. It's too early yet to get these figures or these trends for 2015. Next month's away. It'll probably be October, November before we see them. Now, March 1st, the AAA. AAA does all kinds of vehicles, mostly cars, mostly four-wheelers. But they have found some very distinct trends here in the safety culture. Personal exposure to crashes. 1 in 5 is going to be in a serious accident with injury. 1 in 9 will be seriously injured. 1 in 3 have had a friend or relative seriously injured or killed in a traffic accident. Impaired driving is viewed as a serious threat, and almost everybody disapproves of it. But 1 in 8 people said in the last year they've driven at or above the legal limit. 63.1% approve lowering the legal limit for the four-wheelers, which is at 0.08. Now, for the trucks, it's 0.04. There's actually a movement to move that down for the cars to that level. Now, what would that mean for commercial motor vehicles? Probably cut in half, 0.02. Illegal use of drugs is viewed as serious by over half, but only a third of it regard problem with prescription drugs. Marijuana use within 1 hour is only at 4.2%. I interjected that's probably not in the states that have already legalized its use. Cell phone use. Cell phone use, as you are very well aware, is rampant with car drivers. 2 in 3 report while driving in the last month. 1 in 3 are on the cell phone constantly, which I think is a low number. 68% disapprove of handheld, 31% approve of the hands-free. But 1 in 3 people admit typing or sending a text message while driving in the last month. 2 in 5 report reading a text message or email in the last month. So even though they think it's a bad thing, it's a bad thing for everybody else. It's not a bad thing for me. I can handle it. I can do it. I'm safe. It's all those other jerks out there that are the problem. 70% support restricting handheld while driving, but only 42 support banning cell phone use altogether. 87% support strong laws restricting the reading or sending the texts. But how many people do it? Speeding. 48% of the time, people think it's a bad thing to drive over the speed, 15 miles over the speed limit in residential. And yet, 25% say they've done it the last month. They think it's fine to speed 15 over in a rural area, and 40% basically say it's fine to do it. It's expected. Drowsy driving, almost everybody says it's a problem, but a third said they've done it in the last year. And 94% red light running is unacceptable, but almost 40% say they've done it. Driving without a seatbelt, unacceptable, but 20% say they've done it. And 80% support the law for helmets for motorcycle riders. Probably none of them are motorcycle riders, are they, Mike? Almost 60% support the need for this law. In other words, I don't ride motorcycles, but I think you should. If you do, wear a helmet. The FAST Act. The FAST Act was passed on December 4th, 2015. It's fixing American surface transportation. It's the first multi-year plan for rebuilding the infrastructure. So, very important to us. Why? Because you're spending your days and miles on the infrastructure. You know how it's deteriorating. Now, part of this was to also reform the CSA program and to take the scores off. Oh, guess what? Inadvertently, the FAST Act may have killed the 34-hour restart. But don't get too excited. They continue to say that somewhere in the rule, the regulation, the law, that's going to be incorporated. So the FMCSA has said, well, yeah, technically it's been zipped. But they had the latest effort, which came out 2 days ago, was the FAA funding bill. Federal Aviation Administration. Why would anything to do with trucks be tied to that? It was going to be an add-on. Congress was going to pass this to put this addition on to recover the 34-hour restart. And guess what? It came out, and that part was deleted. Politics. That's what your problem is when you start having regulations tied to funding bills. That's what happens when you get any type of safety issue tied to a political agenda. Somebody puts it in, somebody takes it out, somebody passes the law. Oh, we didn't really mean that. All basic, CSA basic percentile scores and alerts were removed from public view when the FAST Act was signed, December 4th. Until the review process is completed by the Government Accountability Office, they won't be public. Really? Time frame, 18 months for this part of it. Corrective action, 120 days. After that, it has to be looked at, and then it has to be reported to a House committee. Yeah, okay. So what's this come out to? 26 months. February 4th, 2018. However, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has a very consistent policy of never making any timeline that's established. What they did do on March 7th was make the absolute measure public for all motor carriers. So what's the absolute measure? Well, that's the absolute number used to configure CSA scores. But there's no percentiles and there's no alerts. So they based this on one sentence in this act. Notwithstanding inspection violation, FMCSA, qualified law enforcement out of service rates, and absolute measures shall remain available to the public. So now we have numbers that have no relationship to a percentile, but the public has a right to know, even though they may not understand it, may not know where they come from, but they will be available. And we'll go into what they are for TransUnited and what they're making available as far as comparison a little bit later. So, CSA percentiles, scores, not public. They are used and will be public as far as absolute. Now, the specific information on roadside inspections and out of service rates are also available. In fact, they're becoming more predominant. The public carrier operating authority status, insurance status, and carrier safety rating are also public. Policies, bills, policies, procedures, and politics. It's a sure way of making the waters muddier and muddier rather than crystal clear. FMCSA will still use all these basic scores internally to evaluate motor carriers and drivers. CSA scores in any basic and alert status will determine carrier interventions and enforcement actions. But you say, well, you know, regulations. Well, regulations have been around a long time. Ever since the invention of the wheel, we've had regulation, and we will continue to have regulations. Coercion. Coercion is now a word that's in the vocabulary that has to do with commercial motor vehicle drivers because it's tied to the electronic logging device. Final rule was released 11/30/2015. Prevents motor carrier shippers, receivers, transportation intermediaries from coercing drivers to operate and violate federal motor carrier safety regulations, including hours of service, commercial driver's license regulation, drug and alcohol, hazmat, which of course doesn't apply to us. It went into effect January 29th of this year. In this case, the feds say a driver is anyone. A company driver, an independent contractor, a fleet driver, we don't care. They are considered by the regulation as employed by the motor carrier. So, the government is here. The government is here to help. This is one of the worst things that can ever take place. So, technically, what are they talking about? A transportation intermediary. This is anybody who arranges property. Broker, freight forwarder, trucking company, transportation coordinator with a shipper. Anybody is in this. A threat. What's a threat? If you don't deliver this on time, if you don't take this, if you don't do this, even though we've identified, or you've identified to them this is a violation of a regulation, we don't care. It has to be done. What's going to happen? If you don't do it, you'll never load for us again. You won't get the extra pay. You won't something. But the driver has to identify the fact that this is the case, and these are all the regulations that pertains to it. Or it could be the withholding of business or employment. In other words, if you don't do this, you're fired. If you don't do this, we're doing away with your contract. When it has to do with a violation of a commercial or the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. A threat, employment, withholding of business. So, any one of these things can be coercion, or any attempt to take away employment or business opportunities to punish can be coercion. Paperless logs. Electronic logs are here. They're in effect. It's a mandate that was published on December 17th, 2015. It becomes law 12/17 of 17. Our current pedigree electronic onboard recording device complies with these regulations, because anyone who's under current electronic onboard recording device has until 12/17/19 to be compliant with the ELD software regulations and system regulations. So we're already compliant to 2017. As independent contractors, I have to almost implore the fact that you're going to be on board with this. The company drivers already are. As owner-operators, you're going to have to be, one way or the other. Now, exempted, drive-away, throw-away operations. We don't do that. Okay? We don't do that. CMV is older than model year 2000. Why? Because you can't tie in to the truck. You can't tie in to the motor. So, it's imperative those people can use paper logs, but you basically have to be on electronic, because you're not going to be allowed into the ports, you're not going to be allowed into certain parts of the country, you're not going to be allowed because your engines are not going to be compliant with clean air regulations that are going into effect, that are walking into it. So, time cards, 100-mile radius at discretion of the motor carriers. Anyone who works 100-mile radius with us is automatically what? They're on logs anyway. No more than for the occasional driver, which are salesmen, which are delivering trucks to a facility after they've purchased them, have a CDL, they don't normally drive. That's what that's about. If you don't drive more than 8 days in a 30-day period, that's when it works. And then commercial motor vehicle over 22,000 miles a year. Supporting documents, the current is 8 days. They've extended it in this regulation to 13. Doesn't comply to anything we have, because as soon as you're done with your load, you're supposed to scan it and send it to us. Why? Because the customer wants it. Because we have to bill it. So, supporting documents, a bill of lading, schedules, itineraries, trip reports, expense receipts, electronic mobile communication through fleet management system, payroll, and settlement sheets. These are all things that are identified in the ELD mandate. The location for ELD, once it becomes effective, is within 1 mile where you're on duty status. It will ping every 30 minutes or every 60 minutes, and every time you have a status change. When you're on personal conveyance, it will then only go to every 10 miles. That's the circle size. In other words, they don't want to know where you're at. We will have that information, but when it prints out to the inspector alongside the road, they're only going to have a circle size of 10 miles. Engine on or off, and every 60 minutes when moving. Now, how is this transfer of information going to take place? It's going to be a wireless. They are not going to climb in your truck. They are not going to plug in your truck. It's either going to be wireless, web, or email, and email or Bluetooth. So, they're going to walk up, click, and they've got your last 7 days, just like that. Limited edits. They don't specify the number of times it can be edited. But the original information will always show there. You cannot change driving time. You can change off-duty, sleeper, on-duty, not driving. But you cannot change driving time. And it must provide it in a written form, printed format, or display. Seatbelts. Seatbelts are a very important factor for your safety. Use of a seatbelt reduced your death or injury in a crash by 50%. May the odds be with you. This is one way of making it with you. 1 in 3 truck drivers who died in crashes were in 2012, the last time they have numbers for this, were not wearing seatbelts. Failing to use a seatbelt was the 5th most common roadside inspection violation in 2013. Again, the last year that we have any of that information available. So, commercial motor vehicle drivers are supposed to use seatbelts anyway. The thing they left out was the passengers in the commercial motor vehicle. So they've passed this. They've had the comment periods ended. They have not officially published the regulations concerning passengers in commercial motor vehicles being restrained by a seatbelt. Railroad crossing. The railroad crossing criteria that you all have, that you need to follow, is important, because we have to look at the specific railroad crossings and the procedures covered by the permit. If there's something on the permit that says you must comply with and it doesn't specify it, we have to find out what that is, because it may be kind of important. Stopping prior to the railroad crossing, evaluate the grade, local challenges, and if there's a turn immediately following. Obviously, this all goes back to the May 14th incident in Johnston, South Carolina that we were involved. Call the phone number posted on the railroad crossing to determine the time window you have. Override the pressure settings. Inflate the airbags, provide the maximum height. If you're equipped with 2-speed rear ends, put it in the lower end, H power divider. No shifting of gears when you're going over the railroad crossing. That's basic stuff. You don't shift gears going over a railroad crossing. Call the railroad number first if you encounter a problem, and then call us. Where the phone number is going to be posted, this shows multiple locations where they can be. Change. Change is the constant. You can almost say change is the only thing you can count on, because change is something that's bound to take place. Speed limiters. It's supposed to come out now on Tuesday, May 15th. What's it going to be? Well, could be as low as 62, to emulate Ontario, Quebec. Could be as high as 68, which has been the common number they've been kicking around for 15 years. But until it's in black and white, we don't know. All we do know is every commercial motor vehicle, Class 8 and Class 7, will have to have an electronic or mechanical speed limiter, whatever this speed is, throughout the United States. Owner-operator, company, private fleet, it doesn't make any difference. Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, where the results of all pre-employment, post-accident, random, everything done in the controlled basis and reasoning for drug and alcohol testing, all the results will be in a central clearinghouse. They have now kicked this down to June 17th of this year. This is about the 4th, 5th time, so who knows. Hair testing for drug use, no proposed date so far. Insulin-dependent drivers and driving interstates. No proposed date for that either. Entry-level driver training. They came out recently as this month, with the electronic or the entry-level driver training for the national training standards. And this is required by MAP 21. Oh, you remember MAP 21. MAP 21 is the 5-year strategic plan for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And you're saying, well, this isn't going to apply to us. You guys are all experienced truck drivers. You're not entry. You're not looking to upgrade additional endorsement to passenger, hazmat, and for some reason now they're speaking of a separate endorsement for school bus. It's not passenger, it's school bus. But they have to go through this training. But guess what? There's a thing in there called refresher course. Ooh. What does refresher course mean? Well, this is where in a 60-page small print thing I had to go through. It was published on 3/7. Comment period ends 4/16. The comment period on most regulations is from 60 to 90 days. This one's either one. It's quicker. Why? Because this is slam dunk, man. They are going to do this. It goes into effect 3 years after it's published. Why? They have to establish a whole criteria of things. Any CDL holder that has been canceled or revoked by the state of issuance will be required to retake a state-administered, and the state says you have to take the state-administered exam again. They don't have to take the full ELD course, which is 30 hours of driving time, plus an unspecified time in the classroom. Anyone who has it canceled or revoked has to take this shortened course. Anybody who has a safety-related reason for the canceled or revoked CDL will need to take the full course from the provider And these safety reasons are basically outlined in 383.51 B through E. These are the serious CDL violations. 15 over, following too close, improper lane change, grade road, commission of a crime, commercial motor vehicle, things like that. One of them that applies to us is violating an out of service order. If you put out of service and you drive away, they can take your CDL. CDL tests will be required. Skills tests will be required after the certificate is sent to the state to indicate the refresher course has been completed. And the provider has to be on the FMCSA training provider registry. They now have 3 years to get these training providers authorized. So this is not something that's going to go into effect this year necessarily, but it is something that you're going to be concerned about. Administrative suspensions of existing CDLs for child support, non-payment of fines, medical exams expired are not addressed nor excluded from this regulation. The state of issuance of the CDL will determine if the CDL driver will need to retake the CDL written exam before being reinstated. Some states require this now. Some states don't. It will be done on the basis of where you have your CDL and what the state law is. The refresher course, even though it's not specified how many hours, this is like the jumbo safety meeting. You're not going to get it in one day. These are some of the subjects. And if you notice there, range, pre-trip, post-trip, inspection. How many of you can do the 107 steps in a pre-trip and not miss one? All right, hair testing. Use of hair specimens for drug testing. Comment period ended way back in June of 2015 for the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. There is no established date of publication as of yesterday. The FAST Act, again, going back now, incorporating what the FAST Act does, specifies that as soon as SAMHSA provides testing cutoff to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, FMCSA will incorporate it. And now, urine will not be part of the testing. It will be hair. And if you think, well, everybody who's a driver is going to be bald, they can use body hair, everything except moving. The problem is the head hair can be identified to a certain criteria: 90 days, 60 days, 120 days. When you start taking hair off legs, backs, arms, you'll still find it, but it could be 2 years ago. They can't tell if it was 90 days or 2 years. It'll still come back positive. This will be done, should be done sometime this year. Yeah, okay. Not going to place any money on that, but who knows. Okay, how high is your load? If you do anything that's like this, to incorporate how high you are, adding, you're wrong. A tape doesn't do the job. You can only do it with a height set. You measure from the ground to the highest point before loading. Measure multiple points and know the trailer height and how much blocking is going to be used on. So, weight distribution on this first example, the idea is right for the height. I'm not sure whether the weight distribution is going to be quite accurate, but so be it. The idea is go to the highest point. after you load before the riggers detach, remeasure the load with blocking in place in the highest point and adjust as necessary before releasing the crane. The time you spend measuring will keep you from a costly cargo or liability claim. This is the bridge in Washington by the oversized load 3 years ago. They are now, the state of Washington is now attempting to sue the trucking company, the high pole, the pole people, everybody, because they have a $17 million bill, and somebody else is going to be paying this. So, you take down state property, they're not too forgiving. In fact, they're not forgiving at all. TWIC cards. There was an issue with a TWIC PIN number. PIN numbers were established by you when you got your TWIC card. You're going, that was, I renewed mine once, let's see, yeah, 8, 9 years ago. Well, you set up a PIN number. And you're going, really? I don't remember what that is. Well, you can go in to any of the service centers that do TWICs, and without an appointment, they have like a little machine you plug in, you reset to the TWIC number so that if you ever ask what it is or have to provide it on entry to a port, you can remember it. So you just go to any enrollment center and you can find it to the online or call them and take care of this if you need to. Okay, naval bases and Department of Energy nuclear plants. They're requiring proof of U.S. citizenship. The only way that this can be done is 1, a U.S. passport or passport card, or 2 forms of ID, a TWIC and a CDL, and an original copy of a birth certificate. That means it has to have a little stamp on it. You can't make a copy with the thing and say, carry that with you. Or if you're retired military or active duty military, that military ID can also be used. Now, naval bases include Marine Corps bases. So since we're in the DOD, hot and heavy, this is becoming an issue at these locations. Will it become an issue at the others? Don't know. So I'm suggesting that you carry a copy of your birth certificate with you so that when you're out on the road and something comes up, you're not have a problem. As of Friday, 206 medical examiners are within 25 miles of Burns Harbor. Basically, it comes down to the medical examiner number has increased almost everywhere. They were expecting anywhere between 40 and 45,000. It's probably closer to 60,000 medical examiners now. So the DOT card has to be checked, and I have to look it up. You'd be surprised how many I found that the medical examiner thought they were legal and in the system, and I proved to them that they weren't, which is an interesting scenario since every company is supposed to check this for every physical that they've issued. So you can do a search, you can find a medical examiner within these criteria. The CDL and medical card are going to be merged together. Right now, make sure you keep your long form DOT card, long form physical and certificate card with you at all times. Each state requires that you submit any new physical to their office for any driver with a CDL. Eventually, this will all be done by the medical examiner. So, you cannot assume that the medical examiner has done their job. Even when this is going to take place, they're going to give you a piece of paper that's good for 15 days. That 15 days, you have to make sure that your state of record has your newest physical information. Because if the physical expires that they have on record, your license is suspended. So you have to keep your address up on your driver's license. Any official letter from your state of issuance will be sent to your address. And there's one common thing. It will not be forwarded to any other address, period. It will be returned to the state for their instructions. So if your official address looks like this, you may not get it. And if you don't get it, the state says, oh, well, we did all we could. The fact that you didn't have an accurate address is not our fault. And when you find out about it, it's going to be at your next roadside inspection, whether it's at a scale or alongside the highway. All right. Believe it or not, I haven't seen anybody fall asleep here yet. That's a good thing. That's why I like to walk around. Start swinging people in the ears, you know. But this is going to be a more common thing than you ever expect. CPAP machine in the truck. Why? As of 3/10, March 10th, they have a evaluation of screening and evaluating for safety sensitive operators for obstructive sleep apnea. This is done by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and the Federal Railroad Administration. All of a sudden now, the FMCSA has got the FAA doing certain things and suggesting certain things, and now it's got the Federal Railroad Association. So, comment period on this ends 6/8/2016. Why is it important? Moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea can cause a person to experience unintended sleep episodes, lack of attention, loss of concentration, lack of situational awareness, loss of memory, and the loss of ability to safely respond to hazards. Risk factors: obesity. Okay, I'm not the pot calling the kettle black, but I'm just as dark in this area as all you others. Male gender. Sorry, just one of those things. Advancing age. If you're lucky enough to have advancing age, it's going to affect you. Family history. You have brothers, a dad, cousins, who knows? Somebody else that does this. A large neck size. And a large neck size in this case is anybody with over 17 inches. Or an unusually small throat. Which, of course, I have no idea what they're using for comparison here. Now, what's it associated with? Increased risk of hypertension, diabetes, obesity, irregular heartbeat, heart attack, stroke, and sudden cardiac death. In other words, nothing real serious, something you can take a couple aspirin for and it'll go away. No, this is serious stuff. This is serious stuff. It is getting down to the point where if you fit any of those criteria, next time you go in for your DOT physical, they're going to say, you have to go do this first. Now, if all you have to do is lose 100 pounds between now and then, you might want to get started. But that's going to be a tough thing to do. I can tell you, you need to lose 100 pounds. You can tell me, I need to lose 100 pounds. Unless you want to cut off a leg, that ain't going to happen just in a short time. What are the symptoms? Loud snoring. In other words, if your family members tell you, my God, you are 2 doors away, the doors are shut, there's 2 stories, and we still can't sleep. Yeah, okay. So, it's not my problem, I'm asleep. Breathing sensation while sleeping witnessed by another person. Your significant other is saying, you quit breathing for anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. That's kind of a serious thing. And it may not, this is not when your significant other is trying to put the pillow over your head. Yeah. Abrupt awakenings accompanied by shortness of breath. Now, if you ever woke up and you had that thing that you're running, and something that's big, ugly, and got 20 arms and 20 legs is coming after you, it may have more to do with sleep apnea than just a nightmare. Awakening with dry mouth or sore throat, morning headache, difficulty staying awake, excessive daytime sleepiness, attention problems, and irritability. Well, that pretty much describes about 12 things out of the 12 for me, but you know. The 30-minute break. This was originally granted per request of the Specialized Carriers and Riggers Association to waiver the 30-minute break when under a permit level. It was concerned about the use of this, and it was originally given a 2-year waiver up until 6/18/2017. You must have a copy of the letter with you. Why? Because most of these CVSA inspectors don't know about it. You have to realize that the slowdown in tax revenues has made the cutback with the inspectors just as difficult as anyone else. And so they don't get all the stuff they need. You give them the letter, and a lot of times it's the first time they've seen it. Well, damn, didn't know that was in effect. If you're empty or under a legal load, you must comply with the 30-minute break. Now, yesterday, well, Thursday on the 10th, SCRA announced that the extension for the 30-minute break has been extended by the FMCSA until 6/18/20. So they've extended it. They applied for an extension, they granted it. They granted a 3-year extension. So it's now for 5 years. But as of yesterday, the new letter has not been sent out to motor carriers. And so you have to have the old letter with you. And you make sure you have a copy of that letter with you. Now, CVSA has formally complained to the FMCSA that they're granting too many exemptions for hours of service and for other things. They're saying it's making it too hard for their inspectors to know who the exemptions apply to and what circumstances. And so I've got a violin about this size going, too bad, too bad, too bad. But it will affect, not necessarily for us now under the 30-minute, but for anything else that comes forward. Permitted routes. Make sure you read the permit, look at the map prior to leaving, not while driving, not while driving, not while driving, because you're distracted, not while driving. Plan your trip, plan your stops, work your plan. Daily review of the permit and route the night before with your escorts. Driver, you are the captain of the ship. If the ship hits the shoals, guess who goes down with the ship? Other people can be given life rafts. You as the driver go down with the ship. You're calling the shots. You got a problem with it? Let the office know. Not after the fact when it's like, wow, that escort wasn't worth a diddly. But I hadn't had them for a week. Well, why didn't you mention that first day in? Road signs and lost, make the call. Just don't wander around with no oversize. Stop. Never rely on your GPS. Why? Because I don't care who puts it out. The currency is suspect, the height is suspect, and you never know where you might end up with a GPS load. This may not put you in the right route. Indiana, overweight permits. Any violation is a reason to assess $1,000 civil fine. So, this won't take place at the time of the inspection. They'll come back anywhere from 5 months to a year and assess a civil fine. So, if we have a violation of the Indiana permit, we're going to assess you the $1,000 because it's going to eventually come back and get us. Now, what's the other thing that you're required to have with a permit? You have to have provision sheet. The provision sheet is part of the total package. Now, permit may change on every trip. Probably does. The provision sheet may change once a year, twice a year, every other month. Who knows? May not change at all. To make sure you have the current one, go to wcspermits.com, and with an Android or iPhone device, you can select attachments, and you have a listing of the 2 state codes. Select the states, and it will give you all the provision sheets that are current. You can print them off. Some states are going to start being very sophisticated. If you have it up electronically, they will accept it, but you can't count on it. Those are few and far between. Most of them require hard copies. Driving for green out of service tests. If you have not completed these, you can earn 5,000 points for looking at and completing these 6 tests. The subject matter, these are all, comes out of CPSA training manuals. They have a pictorial that gives very good examples of out of service items. I took the information out of there. Some of it's very simple, some of it it's not. So I suggest and encourage you to complete this. It's available under quizzes on the website, and you'll see them listed there. Superload checklist. Be counted, completed every day, and sent in before you start your trip every day. Pictures of the load to show how it's loaded, tarped, and if necessary, the securement of the load before you start your trip. Not while you're en route, before you start your trip. Securements are paramount. You have one slight problem with securement. It can not only make your day very bad, it can make ours even worse. It can make us have a very bad month that month. On the TU website, I list every day, Monday through Friday. So as of Friday, we've gone 34 days without an out-of-service driver inspection, 155 days without an out-of-service load securement, 10 days without an equipment out of service, and 51 days without a DOT reportable accident. CSA, the favorite subject. FAST Act. Readers should not draw conclusions about the overall safety condition based simply on the data, unless the carriers receive an unsatisfactory score. So, they basically said unless they're unsatisfactory, you're authorized to run. But it's in very small print, nobody pays attention to it. High-risk carriers. On Monday of last week, on 3/7, they proposed a regulation to redefine what a high-risk carrier is. In this case, it's the property carrier that exceeds 2 or more basic intervention thresholds at or above the 90th percentile for 2 consecutive months, and has had no on-site inspection in the previous 18. What do they mean by this? It will prioritize carriers on the high-risk list that should identify the highest risk to the public. The comment period for this ends May 6th. Where did this come from? The blueprint for safety leadership aligning enforcement and risk. Reported by the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. Independent review team in July 2014. Again, FAA, FRA, FMCSA. It's all DOT. Effectiveness, there was a determination under this act to make the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine been commissioned by the FMCSA to carry out a study of high-risk carriers and determine the accuracy of the basic safety measures to identify high-risk carriers. Seems like they would have done this in 2010, but they're just getting around to it now because the industry is basically saying, you guys are out to lunch in some of these areas. In some, you're good, but in some, they need to be revised. Unsafe driving. The threshold is 65 percentile. Our current score is 34. The TU performance measure, which is now the absolute number, the absolute measure, is 2.60. The industry average is 1.58. And even after our safety meeting on Thursday, the safety committee meeting, they had this available. That afternoon, they now have the industry high posted. They didn't have it posted before, but they do now. So the industry high is 145. So we're above the industry average, but we're well below the industry highest. So how are people going to use these numbers because they're public? Don't know. This is how we look when we plot the basic for unsafe driving. What do they count? Seatbelt, failure control to obey a traffic control device, improper lane change, lane restriction. Speeding, 6 to 10, 11 to 14. Failure to use hazard warning. Hours of service. Threshold is 65. Our threshold now is 64. Ooh, that's close. That's not good. No, it's not. TU measure, absolute measure is 0.91. TU average, 0.97. Industry highest, 30. What? Okay. What's that mean? I don't know. This is what it means, is we're just below threshold. So, independent contractor, you have any violation with logs, on paper logs, because you have that option right now. You have any violation, you don't have any option anymore. You got an electronic log, so you go down the road. That's it. Period. No ifs, no ands, and no buts. So you're either perfect with paper, but if you have a violation, you're on electronic, or you're gone. So, 14-hour violation, driving beyond 8 hours. These are the violations that took place essentially prior to the exemption. Form and manner, no driver's record of duty status, not current, failing to keep the last 7 days. False logs, 11-hour violation, driving beyond 11 hours, 11-hour rule violation. Driver fitness, threshold's 80. Our score is 72. Performance measure, 0.14. Industry average, 0.17. Industry highest, 30. Absolute numbers. What's it mean? We're below threshold and we're tracking below. We have 6 events in the last 24 months. As soon as we get below 4 events, if we don't have any more, that number goes to 0. Because in this instance, if you have 5 events in a 24-month period, you have a score. If you have 4 events, you're unscored. You're 0. Driving while disqualified, suspended for safety or unrelated unknown reason. Operating a CMV without a CDL. Non-payment of a fine. Child support. It depends on the state. Disqualified from operating, lacking physical qualifications. Suspended for non-safety reasons. It's a suspension. It still counts. Safety related or unknown outside the state of issuance. Controlled substances, we're at threshold 80. Our score is 0. Our measure is 0. Industry average is 0.007. Industry highest, 15. We don't have any inspections. We don't need any. All you have to do is have one event in a 24-month period to receive a score. We don't want any. We don't need any. Vehicle maintenance, threshold is 80. Our score is a 74. Performance measure 4.61. Industry average 3.30. Industry highest is 30. What's that mean? We're essentially below threshold and we're gradually getting better. Going down. We have to drive these numbers down. There is a push out there to move this from its current threshold of 80 down to 75. Now, the government can't do anything quickly except probably that. They'll move the 65s down to 60, the 80s down to 75. And they'll probably do that overnight. We'll wake up and we'll go, oh, they have a new threshold. But doesn't make any difference. So, flat tires, turn signals, lights, lights, power steering, brakes. In other words, BLT, brakes, lights, and tires. It's not a sandwich. It's what's easiest to see, easiest to write up, easiest to fix, easiest to know about. Load securement, cargo shifting, leaking, failure, direct cargo shifting, loose, damaged, failure to meet minimum tie down. In other words, you had 10 feet 1 inch between that instead of 10 feet. Insufficient tie downs without header. You have to have the bonus in front and the bonus in back. And they're not part of your 10 feet. Improper machinery securement. What do we haul? Machinery. Cargo that is high weight, high value. We should never have an insufficient or improper machinery securement. Now, sometimes your repairs and your change may not be quite up to speed. Load securement violations. Any of these, we are starting with the spring to be what? Loading equipment out in job sites, unloading equipment at job sites. What do you have at job sites? Mud and stones. If it gets up on the trailer, it has to come off the piece, it has to come off the trailer. You cannot have anything on that piece of machinery that can fly off and hit anyone else, because that's an insecure load. If you were stopped with any type of mud on the deck of the trailer, that is an insecure load. You will be put out of service. So, that's not good for us. It's not going to be good for you either. Hazmat. We have no hazmat inspections. We have no score. Industry averages and industry highest are not even available. Crash indicator. Threshold is 65. Our score is 16. The performance, TU performance, is 0.14. We do not know what the industry average or industry highest is, because that is not public. We are in a good trend here. We need to keep us in this trend. We need to keep this number down. We have 7 crashes that have been recognized in the last 7 months. One's an injury accident, non-preventable. Unoccupied vehicle was hit, person was taken from the scene. 6 towaways. Of those 7, 4 of them are non-preventable. They still count against us. So, preventability. They've done this study. It was completed on March 25th, 2015. The FAST Act says by 12/4/16, by the end of this year, requires them to review the impact of preventable and non-preventable accidents on the carrier basic scores. Again, something they should have done at the beginning, but they haven't done yet. Safety fitness determination. Per the FAST Act, until the DOT IG signs off and certifies the reforms are completed and in place, the continue to operate, identified for intervention, or unfit to operate will not be used. But on 1/21/16, there is a formal FSD proposal that will be issued and only have one safety determination: unfit. Unfit would have a threshold of 96% for motor carriers. Comment periods are due by 6/23. See how these months can vary on comment period? From 6 weeks to 6 months almost. There's a calculator posted on the FMCSA to determine if this rulemaking would affect them. The day it came out, I checked ours. We're not even close. But the idea here is, on one side they're saying, we're not going to allow this change at all. And then the other side, they're saying, well, we're going to do something else. And so this is going to be very interesting. Because it only defines the 4% of the worst group, the actual numbers of 435,000 carriers at the most would include 2,436. The actual, when they got down to it, because only 14% of all the motor carriers have a rating or have numbers, it's probably closer to about 450. But yet, because of this, if it's enacted, a lawsuit will probably determine if this program will continue. So, the current motor carrier safety rating system is continuing to be satisfactory, conditional, and unsatisfactory. 374,000 of the current motor carriers are unrated. They have no rating whatsoever. Inspections, we will give you all these points for level 1, clean, level 2, clean, level 3, clean. We want you to get clean inspections. We need you to get clean inspections. All roadside inspection paperwork must be scanned and sent or mailed to the TU office as soon as possible. In almost every state, there's a requirement that we have to sign it and send it back to the state within 15 days. There are very few that we don't have to send back. 2014, we had 114 inspections overall. 52 of those were clean, so you all did a very good job. We had 16 out of services, 12 equipment, 5 driver, 2 load securement. You add that up, that's 19, which means we had 3 double hits. As of yesterday, we had 14 inspections, 3 clean, 3 out of service, 1 driver, 2 equipment. When you send in your trip paperwork, scan it, drop it off, whatever, please put on the load number, unit number, bill rating, driver's name, and if you're doing paper, you still have to do the HUP reading. If you're doing electronic, you have to do that. You can save yourself almost 2.5 hours today by doing electronic log. Now, that's just time. You got plenty of it, right? Bill rating needs the load number put on each sheet. Lights on for safety. Why? Because any time of year, whether there's fog, whether it's cloudy, whether it's clear day, lights may not help you see, but it'll help you be seen. And just because you drive a big truck doesn't mean you don't disappear into the background in the circumstance of somebody coming up to a crossroads and looks down and you're coming toward them and they go, man, I didn't see you. So, drive on, drop anytime you move, company or owner operator, have your lights on for safety. Personal protective equipment, this is the equipment that you expect you to have with you in the truck and have it on at every dipper and every receiver. You are a professional driver. You are the professional. Look like the professional. I don't care if the other yutzes that are there that drive for the other companies don't have any of their stuff on. I'd feel better if they did, but I'm only concerned about you. You have all your personal protective equipment on, and you look professional. You be professional. Safety first. Job sites, truck stops. If you're concerned about being seen when you're walking, it's better to have your PPE on and be seen than to get hit and then have people say, man, sorry about that, bud. I didn't even see you in this rain, dark parking lot. So, accident avoidance. This is not something we have here as a problem. This is the problem that I had with vans and reefers. Get out and look. We had so many, over half of our accidents were backing accidents. But it's something to remind you of. Before you back up, get out and look. Accident prevention can be as simple as that, having your mirrors adjusted correctly, maintaining contact with the escorts, not trusting the on-site riggers for obstacle clearance. Come on, come on, come on. Whoops. Stop, you already hit something. Whose problem is it now? Is it their problem? No, it's your problem. Because you allowed an idiot to back you into a fixed object. Now, at that point, who's the idiot? Not being distracted by driving. Well, what kind of distractions? Yeah. I won't even go into what they might be. Accident reports. All right. This is what I usually had to deal with in the past. We don't have the problem here. I don't need it as a problem. Stop. Set your brakes. Put on your four-ways. Call the police. Set up your triangle. And then document. Take as many pictures as you can and call me. DOT reportable accidents. Fatality, injury that's treated away from the scene. Any vehicle has to be towed from the scene due to damage. ISSD. The ISSD score that we have determines how often you get inspected. Right now, we're in the green. That's not necessarily a good thing. We don't get enough clean inspections to dilute a bad one. So our trend now is that we're at 43. You can see for a while we weren't. We were in the red. We don't need to be in the red. Like being in the green, we could be in the orange a little bit, do a few more inspections, go between orange and green right at that level. That'd be fine. Roadside inspections. You can see that the number of roadside inspections have dropped off. Why? Because the state has a money problem. And I don't care which state you're talking about. They have a funding problem. Most of the state inspectors do not work a 40-hour week. Most of the state workers now work a 32-hour week or a 34-hour week. Why? Because they don't have the revenues to pay the salaries. So, are we going to get as many inspections as we did back in 2012? No. Why? Because the scales are closed, the workers are not out in the mobile units. That's why it counts more and more with the inspections you do get. The accidents in 2015 were broken down like this, which basically meant that the hit by vehicle 2 was our most common. Next most common was overhead. Yeah. What do we do, guys? Y'all haul oversized. Overhead can be anything from a tree limb to a line to an overpass. In this case, traffic light, bridge and overpasses, lines and trees. Now, when you have that many bridges and overpasses, you have significant damage to cargo. Because, believe it or not, the bridges don't really get affected by this too much. Usually it's very small amount of planes come on bridges. So, would it be nice to have all these signs? Yeah. But if we slap these all over the inside of your truck, would it make any difference? So, hit fixed object, yeah, one of the highest things we did. Location, highway. Any other truck company with vans, reefers, or flatbeds don't have the majority of their accidents highways. They have them at constantly and truck stops. So the claims, tractor damage, trailer damage, cargo damage. So far this year, we've got 2 hit by vehicle 2, 2 hit fixed object, 1 we hit at rear end of a vehicle 2, and 1 overhead. That overhead was a line, not a Comcast line. Fixed objects, 2, vehicle 1 hit vehicle 2, 1. Cargo, and truck damage. Location, all on the highway, basically. Spring colors. Spring is the time for the colors to come out. But what's the color we normally see? This, orange. They will come out of storage, and they will start being put out more and more, if they aren't already. Orange is the most predominant color we have to deal with because it's going to be road construction. Weather is going to change, but not necessarily the absence of bad weather. It's just going to change from snow and ice to significantly stronger storms. The kids are still in school, so they're riding to and from buses, walking or driving to school. But the one thing that's constant is kids never think about you. You have to think about them, what their actions are doing. Longer days and warmer weather may be better, but can lead to high winds, storms, driving rain, limited visibility, flooding, and more vehicles out on the road. So, those of you who were down in Louisiana earlier this week, you saw the results of the heavy rain, 2 feet of rain. Where does it all go? It didn't go anywhere, except over the roads. Spring weather, tornadoes, yeah. Thunderstorms. Does a thunderstorm necessarily lead to a tornado? No, but typically you have a thunderstorm before you get a tornado. So keep your windshields clean, all lights on, including taillights and headlights, keep them clear of the road grime. Your dashboard has to be uncluttered, your mirrors adjusted properly and clean so you can see as much around you as you possibly can. Road construction, they're all live with activity now. Patching potholes is a continuing effort everywhere, and impatient car drivers and construction goes together like baseball and warm weather. It's going to be naturally the same. Every construction zone brings out the worst in the four-wheelers. They know only one thing for sure. I want to be in front of you before you go into construction, and if I can't, I'm going to pass you as soon as I get out. So, increase your following distance and decrease your speed. Time and distance is necessary to respond to the stupidity of the four-wheeler. Always signal your intentions and have your headlights on when the truck is moving. Slips, trips, and falls. It's a necessary problem to worry about for you, because any season is worried about slips, trips, and falls, because this is the most frequent injury that drivers have. And it's mostly done when they're doing the things that they're used to doing over and over again. Climbing in out of a larger tractor, or climbing up and down off the train. You have wet surfaces and mud. You have debris on the job sites, truck stops, high winds, wet surfaces. You're climbing up with a tarp on a load, and that's always a challenge. Quick weather change can lead to this, and falls are the result. Use 3 points of contact when entering or exiting a vehicle. Just because you haven't had a problem for the last 20 years doesn't mean the next time it's not going to be a problem. 3 points of contact: 2 hands in the foot, 2 feet in the hand. The option of the other parts hitting your body, hitting the ground, usually don't end up too well. Recruiting incentive. For current owner-operators, company drivers, and agents, refer. For the drivers, we'll give you points. For the agents, we're going to give you cash. But the points for you as a driver are given when they first complete their first load, when they're out 90 days, and when they're out 180 days. Your fuel incentives for owner-operators, you should all know now how much money you can save by staying within network. For the company drivers, network is what you want to be in 90% of the time if you can. So, this is the part you've all been waiting for. Do you have any questions on anything that we covered? Okay.